What's up, everybody? It's Kyle with another episode of Unlocking Your Inner Strength. This is episode 341, if you're counting. Today, what I'm going to be going over is 7 things that I do that people find odd or they kind of go against the grain. But these things have been tested. You know, I always test stuff on myself. They've been applied, and there's great health benefits to doing these things. There's a reason I do them, but I'm going to explain them, kind of give you a little bit of the science behind them or why I do them, and then you can make your own decision if that's something that you want to start getting involved in. So when we were at my buddy's house this past Saturday, there was like 5 families. You know, we all grew up together, so it was really cool. All the kids are there, the wives. And he made a feast. You know, he made prime rib. I had planted the seed into my buddy the King's head a couple weeks back. But then as I'm making my first plate, he said, he goes, you do strike doubt in me when I cook. He goes, that if there's going to be enough food, he goes, I always have to account for how much you're going to eat. And there's some big guys in that group, but he was alluding to my ability to feast, which goes hand in hand with fasting. So fasting is kind of right off the top. If you know me, that's something I've been doing for a long time. That's kind of my bread and butter. But when people first hear about the style of fasting that I do, it seems to shock them. You do what? How do you do that? So to reiterate what I do on a weekly basis, it's a 48-hour fast and then 1 meal a day. And I just keep following that. And that ties into really kind of hitting if there was something magical about eating or diets, it would be fasting because it plays a hormonal game. Calorie in, calorie out doesn't work. People that still try to push that have no idea what they're talking about. They're kind of clinging to what they were led to believe. And maybe they're fearful of admitting that, hey, you know what? I was wrong with that. I did that for years. Messed up my body completely, doing these starvation diets. So that's the first thing, the fasting. Now, the second thing that I do on a daily basis, and pretty much not all of these things I'm going to go over, but 5 or 6 of the 7 things I do on a daily basis. Second thing is at night, I tape my mouth shut. So why would I do that? It sounds like it could be scary. Some people, have said, well, I get claustrophobic. I don't know what that really has to do with taping your mouth shut. But I get the sensation of maybe not being able to breathe. So I was reading a book about 3 summers ago about breathing. And with that, most people, or a lot of people, I should say, breathe through their mouth when they sleep. So if you're breathing through your mouth when you sleep, you're never going to get into a deep, restful sleep. And the simple way to know if you're doing that, you might wake up with a dry mouth, but ask your wife or your spouse or your partner or whatever if you snore. And if you don't have a wife or a spouse or a husband, then you could just set the recorder on your phone to find out if you snore. But if you're snoring, you're breathing through your mouth. So what happens, you don't get into a deep, restful state. You probably have to wake up throughout the night to urinate because when we don't get into that deep, restful state, there's a hormone that is not released adequately that causes us to retain water, aldosterone, right? If that's not released when we're sleeping, we're going to have to constantly get up to go pee. So I've had people that say, I stopped drinking way before I go to bed, and I still have to get up to go pee. That's not the issue, but it's usually mouth breathing. I've had people completely fix that issue when they've adopted this and started taping their mouth shut. Now, secondarily, when you breathe through your nose, you're cleansing. It has a very cleansing effect on everything that's coming in to your respiratory system. It produces more NO, nitric oxide, for better blood flow to the muscles, to the heart, everything. So it has a really powerful effect. And with that, much less likely to get infections, bacterial, viral. So breathing through the nose. So be mindful of that during the day that you're breathing through the nose. But when you're going to sleep, I use the 3M medical tape. Doesn't have any gooey stuff on it. Put a piece right across your lips, and you're good to go. So that's number 2 on my list. And these are not ranked in any order of importance. They're all important. Third thing I do is chlorine dioxide. So I just did a drink of that before I came in. So chlorine dioxide there's two parts you got to mix together. It's a sodium, and then there's one part of it is acid. But you put them in a cup, anywhere from, I've gone as high as 8 drops. You kind of got to build up when you're doing this. You put them in there, they'll mix together. It'll have a very strong chlorine type smell. It'll turn like golden in color. It'll actually emit different gases you can see coming off of it. But what this does, and this is something that, if you remember back when COVID first started, they were blasting Trump, saying that he was telling people to drink bleach. That's not what he was doing at all. He was talking about chlorine dioxide. So chlorine dioxide works basically, it can pull electrons off any of the bad things within that have entered our bodies, such as bacteria, harmful viruses, and basically it just disintegrates them. So it's not necessarily curing disease, but it's not allowing it to replicate, and it's stopping it right in its path. So I kind of do that as a preventative, and I've had people do that, and I've done it when I've been sick before. So it's a real simple thing you could do. You get the chlorine dioxide, you just go on Amazon. You could search it on Amazon, get it sent to your house. There's a book on it. But that's something that you're not going to see a lot of people doing or talking about. Because, again, most people act through fear, right? The media tries to manipulate people through fear. And a lot of the health industry tries to manipulate people through fear. They'll tell you that's bleach. It's not bleach. Do your research on it. I've read the book on it, done all that. So that is something we do. We also give that to the kids. So it's perfectly safe. Again, we dose them up, but if they have a cough going on or something, we start giving them the chlorine dioxide. We call it their super strong drink. So they kind of like it when they get to do that. Fourth thing that I do, which I'll tell you a funny story in a second, but I do backwards walking. So backwards walking was taught to me by Matt Fury. So Matt coached me for a number of years. Very interesting guy. His wife was Chinese. He spends a lot of time in China. So he would notice that a lot of people would walk backwards. So then he started researching it. He started doing it, and he realized it had this calming effect on his nervous system and his brain. And in China, they actually say if you could walk backwards as a kid, you're more intelligent than those who cannot, because you got to recruit the muscles different. You got to recruit the nervous system different. It's affecting the wiring in your brain. So when you walk backwards, it's very meditative. You can do this with your breathing. You can do this with your visualization. So when I was doing this, I think it was 2 years ago, I was going on this road near our house, up and down. I'd go about 45 minutes. And somebody passed me, it was a quiet road. She said, "What are you walking backwards for?" I said, "Oh, it's good for my brain." I didn't really want to try to explain it to her because I was busy doing the backwards walking. When I got back to the truck, the cop car shows up. And, I had at that time, my yellow glasses on, the shooting glasses. He says, "Sir, we got called that you were walking up and down the street backwards. Are you okay? Is everything okay?" I'm like, "Yeah, I'm completely fine." I said, "I'm just, I do this for my mind and kind of my visualization practice. But walking backwards, they say, is also very good for your kidneys." So that's something else you can add in. I tell people to try it, and a lot of people will dismiss a lot of the stuff on this list because they think it's weird. You're missing out then, right? And that's one advantage that I have is I don't care if people think I'm weird. So I'll do the stuff, I test it, I do it, and then if it works, I stick with it, right? Because I'm after superior health. That's what I want, and then I can teach people, right? That's as a health expert, I've got to do stuff that the mainstream is not willing to tell people to do. There's so much faulty advice out there, and you just look at the state of health with the majority of people out there. It's because they're not following some basic principles. And this stuff is kind of, you want to start with all this stuff, but some of it can be very, very helpful for somebody starting a journey of health and fitness. So the next thing I have on the list, and this is more for mental fitness, mushrooms, psychedelic mushrooms. Now you can microdose this, so I'll do that, and I do that pretty frequently. But then you can do the big trips. So if you've never done a psychedelic trip, when you're doing this, you're really accessing a lot of your subconscious. You're accessing the spiritual world. So when we talk about fitness, to me, it's mind, body, spirit. You can't separate any of them. But to find out who you are and to have deeper levels of self-awareness, I found that to be a great thing, a great tool. Now, the first time I did a mushroom trip, it went bad, meaning we did, like an eighth is a lot. We did at least a quarter. probably more than that, the first one. And went into this, I mean, it was unbelievable experience as far as the visuals and that type of stuff. You could see the energy on everything, every tree, every blade of grass, my dogs, everything. The music we were listening to. But then I went into a spot where I thought Devin and the kids were no longer coming back. Like I was in an alternate dimension. And time really slowed down. But again, it was the first time I did it. So I was kind of thought I was in kind of like a hell. And that's where I was going to remain. But when I came out of it, and I came out of it right when Devin was literally pulling into the driveway. So I don't think that was a coincidence. It was the trip was ending and she pulled in, which, it was such a feeling of relief at that point. But at that point, that's what I needed in my life, that message that I was taking Devin and the kids for granted. That was right after we opened with all the COVID stuff, about 2 weeks, 3 weeks after that. So we were, I had all types of media stuff going on, national news, and it was very draining. It was very draining emotionally, and I was getting caught up in that stuff, not paying attention to the blessings I had right in front of me. So that trip gave me exactly what I needed at that point in my life, and that's the power of that stuff. So you got to really focus on your mental fitness, and there's a lot of research, even with addicts and things of that nature, where psychedelics can literally, for lack of a better term, cure them. So very powerful stuff. Something I suggest you look into. Again, you got to do your own research on this and decide what's best for you. I'm telling you what I do. Now, the sixth thing on my list is the cold tub. So at the party I mentioned on Saturday, Devin was talking to one of my buddies about the cold tub and the hot tub, because one of them came over. We went in the hot tub, smoked a cigar on Thursday night last week. And she said, did you go in the cold tub? He said, no. And she goes, yeah, she goes, I don't really see the point in it. And I get that. If you don't see the point in it, you're probably just thinking that is some type of torture. So I do love the mental toughness aspect of it. Like I cherish that. It's never comfortable going in. This morning it was like 20 degrees outside. You get in and it's painful, but then the pain goes away. Now with the cold tub, what are the benefits? One thing, metabolic rate, and this is even when it's like 55 degrees, which isn't really that cold. That's cold it's like the coldest your shower will typically go. But 55 isn't that cold as far as the cold tub goes. When you do that for a period of time, your metabolic rate is raised by 350%, and that stays elevated for a good amount of time. So you got to think about that. Your dopamine production goes up by 250%. So dopamine is what people are trying to get a hit of when they eat sugar, when they binge eat, when they drink, do various drugs, all this type of stuff. Dopamine could be when somebody goes out and they're like a shopaholic. But with the cold tub, you're getting this dopamine effect, 250% increase over baseline, and it stays elevated. So that's another great thing. And within your body, you have over 125,000, I think, kilometers of blood vessels within your body. So basically 3 times around the earth. Now, those blood vessels a lot of times have poor health because they're not contracting, they're not really healthy. The cold water therapy, as Wim Hof has shown us, has been shown to really improve that vascular and the blood vessel health, right? The cold makes everything constrict, right? And it really makes everything tight. Now, what I like to do is I go right into the hot tub afterwards. Sometimes I'll go back and forth. So I'm constricting and getting this blood to really work, and then, boom, open them up, and then constrict, open them up. So very, very good as far as heart health and brain health, metabolic rate. So many benefits. It's a simple thing you can do. You can buy like a Rubbermaid tub and make it. I made mine out of a box freezer, just sealed it up, got this temperature regulator that I keep plugged in, and I keep it to the temperature that I want, which right now is 44 degrees. So next time I clean it, I'll knock it down to 43 degrees. So that's what I've been doing. Now, the last thing, this is the newest thing that I've been doing. And I saved it for last because it's probably going to take people a little bit to wrap their head around. But I'll tell you this, if you research this, you will not, I won't seem so crazy, but it's okay if I do. So urine therapy, drinking your own urine. This is something I started doing about a month ago. I listened to this interview by this doctor talking about blood clots and whatnot. And, I won't go too far into that, but one of the biggest things you can do if blood clots are a potential issue for you, you can drink your own urine. So people will say, well, isn't that waste? Isn't that garbage? I told you guys this before, and I'll tell you again. Nearly everything you're told about health and fitness is wrong. There is a huge conspiracy to keep you not healthy. Urine has been used throughout the centuries all around the planet as a miracle medicine. Okay, it's not the same as when you take a crap. That is loaded with bad stuff. Urine is basically a highly filtered blood plasma specific to you. There's over 2,500 vital nutrients, vitamins, hormones, enzymes, and critical antibodies, okay, that are in your urine, specific to your body. So you think about that. I mean, it's if they could replicate that and sell it, it would be invaluable. You wouldn't even be able to put a price on it. So that's one thing. There's actually 6 compounds in urine that are not yet known to man. Okay, 6 compounds. So what are they? They're in there for a reason. And the Bible even talks about this as well. When you were a fetus, not that you remember that, but when you were developing in your mom's womb, amniotic fluid is mainly made up of urine. So you've already ingested urine. So anybody that says, oh, it's going to kill you, they don't, first, and this is the problem, right? Like, people don't know science. They don't know the backstory behind everything. So the amniotic fluid, if the urinary tracts are blocked and the baby cannot take in the amniotic fluid, the urine, which is mainly what amniotic fluid is, their lungs will not develop. So you think about that, right? The urine, how that gives life in the development of lungs with a developing baby. Can destroy any disease-carrying viruses, bacteria, cancerous tumors, dissolves dangerous blood clots, can help with allergies, cold, and flu. It's the best and safest diuretic, so flushing excess water out of your body that you don't need. So caffeine's a diuretic, alcohol's a diuretic, but imagine drinking your own specific blueprint of medicine that's going to keep your fluid levels within your body where they should be. So that's huge implications as far as people that have hypertension and insulin resistance and type 2 diabetics. So that's another thing to really keep in mind. You can use it on skin wounds and burns without any scarring showing up. And when people say, well, I would never do that. Most skincare products have urea, right, or uric acid in it. That comes from urine. So most people have no idea that they're constantly putting this on their skin anyhow. So that is something that let me go over it. Actually, I have a couple more things that are within it. DHEA is in your urine. That's a huge precursor to testosterone, right? So if you have hormonal problems, testosterone, estrogen, whatever, there's research showing that just ingesting your own urine can correct those imbalances. So it's loaded with DHEA. Something called H1, which inhibits the growth of cancer cells. Again, think about that. And the research I was doing on this, there's many people, and again, tie this back to the conspiracy theory, if you will, many people that have cured themselves when nothing else has worked with various diseases and cancers to drinking their own urine. It has a natural cortisone in it, which is for healing. It has urea in it, which is antibacterial. Urokinase, which makes your arteries dilate, increases blood flow. So all these great things. So that's the newest thing that I'm on. Do it first thing in the morning. Catch a stream about midstream. Get any sediment that was built up. You get that out, and then you drink it. And once you get over the mental block to it, it's actually something that you look forward to because I know how good it is for me. So those are 7 things that I do mainly on a consistent basis. Even with the mushrooms, I microdose quite often. But again, you got to know what you're doing. You got to dabble with this stuff and play around with it. But fitness is a frontier, right? You got to be able to explore it and see what works for you. So that's all I have for you guys today in episode 341. Don't forget to subscribe and leave a review if you can. That helps us out greatly. And I'll see you guys next time.